Hello, in this mind map, we're going to look at an overview of the female genital tract. This is a pretty large topic, and again, let's just begin by understanding its main functions. This is in reproduction and in terms of producing the eggs or the ova, transporting the eggs and also the sperm so that fertilization can occur, and then maintaining the embryo and the fetus for its development and nourishment, and finally to deliver the fetus. The other main function is that of hormone production for female sexual characteristics. So maybe we can start off by taking a brief look at the anatomy of the female genital tract. And we can divide it broadly into internal versus external genitalia. So this is just a simple sketch of the female genital tract. Let's start off by looking at the components of the internal genitalia. First, we have the ovaries, which are bilateral, of course, and the fallopian tubes. Again, these are bilateral, and they start from the cornu of the uterus. This is the passage through which the eggs move on their passage into the uterine cavity. And then we have the uterus, which comprises the most superior part, which is the fundus, and then the body of the uterus, which is called the uterine corpus. And this part sort of between the body and the uterine cervix is called the lower uterine segment. And of course, we have the uterine cervix. The cervix is made up of the ectocervix, which is lined by stratified squamous epithelium, and the endocervix, which is lined by glandular or columnar epithelium. So you can understand that the tumors that come out from the ectocervix would be squamous cell carcinoma generally, the malignant tumor, and for the endocervix it would be adenocarcinoma. Moving inferiorly, we of course then have the vagina. So these are the internal genitalia, and let's have a quick look at the external genitalia. These include the vulva, which comprises the mons pubis, the labia minora and majora, the clitoris, as well as Bartholin's glands. The urethral meatus or opening is also considered part of the external genitalia. These are the main parts. There are other smaller parts which you can read about in your anatomy texts. So just a very quick look at the embryonal origin of the female genital tract. The main components, namely the internal versus the external genitalia. The genital ridges form the origin of the ovarian tissue, and the ovaries comprise three parts: the surface epithelium, the ovarian stroma, and the germ cells. So it is important to understand these three components when you are looking at neoplasms or tumors of the ovary. The paramesonephric or Mullerian ducts, these give rise to the fallopian tubes, the uterus, and the vagina. For the external genitalia, these come from several sources, including the urogenital sinus, the genital tubercle, the genital swelling, which sounds quite painful actually, and also the urethral fold. There is a close embryological relationship between the surface epithelium of the ovaries as well as the epithelium of the fallopian tubes and the endometrium. So this is why epithelial tumors that arise in these three areas are morphologically very similar, and they're also very closely related to mesothelium or the peritoneal lining. So we're going to just very briefly look at the main pathologies in the female genital tract. This is not going to be a comprehensive list. Here we can start off with congenital problems such as structural abnormalities and functional or hormonal abnormalities. And then infections. Many of these are transmitted sexually, so as the person becomes sexually active. And then we have some non-neoplastic or functional conditions. Very common conditions such as endometriosis and adenomyosis are in this category. And as we move on, we also have pregnancy-related disorders which will be elaborated on in much greater detail in your obstetrics and gynecology posting. And of course, not forgetting a very important category, which is tumors or neoplasms. It is very important to classify the tumors because there are so many different types of tumors that arise in the female genital tract. So a good way would be to look at them according to location, for example, tumors of the ovary, tumors of the endometrium, etc., and also specific tissue type. Again, an example would be epithelial tumors of the endometrium versus mesenchymal tumors of the uterine wall or the myometrium. So the next mind maps will take you through some of the main pathologies in the female genital tract.